Hi everyone, today I'm going to be drawing this pear with colored pencils. You can see my reference image on the left and I am working on the drawing on the right. I am using several brands of colored pencils for this drawing, including Prismacolor, Polychromos, Luminance, and also Derwent Drawing pencils. And I'm drawing on Rising Museum Mount Board, which is my new favorite drawing surface. It's just a really nice, thick paper. I'm starting off here by adding several layers of pencil, working right now on the shadows. And I'm just slowly building up the layers on this pear. That Luminance olive yellow was one of the colors that I used a lot on this pear. And I also used a Prismacolor chartreuse and some Polychromos May green. Here I'm building up that really darkest shadow. That's using a Luminance Perylene Brown. And now I've got a Prismacolor Artichoke. I don't always build my shadows quite this slowly, but I just really was taking my time with this drawing and just enjoying the drawing process. I had a little bit more time this week. So I really took my time here and just went layer by layer. Working around the lighter shadow up here. I'm using a Prismacolor henna. You can see some of the white spots that are showing up underneath as I'm working through this drawing. That's because I started off by indenting the paper with a really sharp Polychromos pencil. So none of my pencil will actually stick in those areas. So it creates this really nice texture that looks like it's coming almost from underneath. And then I will add some extra details on top. So it just gives lots of layer of depth and texture to the drawing. That indenting technique is one of my favorite things to do. And you have to do that before you even start working through your layers. More artichoke. I was also using a light umber in those shadows. And here you can see me blending everything with Gamsol odorless mineral spirits. Any solvent will work, but I'm basically just dissolving the pencil pigment and making this look a little bit more painterly. I use mineral spirits in all of my drawings. Just really find it to be the best way for me to blend. So after the Gamsol has dried, I will come back through with more layers of pencil and start to add some details, or finish adding the details, I guess. I've already started, but be putting more details into this drawing. Using mostly the same pencils that I was working with in the first layers. That's a canary yellow from Prismacolor. It's really important to get those details around the stem. You're going to want to make sure you've got enough shadow and some lines that are kind of curving away from the stem area. You want to make sure it looks like that stem is going down into the center of the pear rather than just sitting on top. So I spent quite a bit of time working on that. Back to that Luminance olive yellow. That was probably the main color that was in this pear, but really you could use any kind of yellowish green color as your base, and that's going to be just fine. I definitely used more pencils than I needed to. Have a tendency to do that. I have them, so I try to use what would maybe for me be the perfect pencil, but you could easily get a very similar look by using different pencils. And getting close to being finished with this part of the drawing. Just have to continue layering until you're happy with it, until it looks good. Adding some extra little spots and dots and details. Using the electric eraser to pull up some brighter highlights here and there. And now onto the leaf. I'm pushing really hard with that May green Polychromos because I'm indenting the paper once again. That's one of the techniques that I really like to use for any kind of leaves that are in veins that are in leaves. And then I can go over with my other colors and those veins will still show up. So I'm going to start by blocking in these shadowed areas. I'm using a few different pencils for that. I had a walnut brown from Polychromos, a dark umber from Prismacolor, and also a black raspberry from Prismacolor that I was using in these shadows. And then for the lighter parts of the shadows, I was using that light umber pencil that I used in the shadows of the pear. I always like to try to incorporate some of the same pencils into different parts of the drawing if I can, just to create a cohesiveness. And then going over, I use spring green and also yellow chartreuse. There's my May green again, the Polychromos. And now blending that with Gamsol. The way I use the Gamsol is to dip the paintbrush into the Gamsol, and then I like to dry it off on an old cloth and then just come straight in and make sure you've got all of the pigment really nicely dissolved. If you don't want to drag color around, you want to make sure you have a pretty dry brush and you want to clean that brush off. You know, for instance, if I were working on the brown parts of this leaf, I would want to clean that off before I start dissolving the pigment on the green parts of the leaf. But sometimes you want to drag the color around so that you can blend things together a little bit. In that case, I would have a little bit more of a wet brush and then not clean it off in between. just putting some finishing details on that leaf. And moving on to the rest of the stem and this tiny leaf that's back here. Used a dark gray pencil in the shadow here. I don't have a green that's dark enough to create that look of the shadow, so I layer down some gray first and then go over that with green. In this case, I use the Chromium Green Opaque from Polychromos. And now moving on to the stem, here's where I'm indenting the paper. I used a sharp white Polychromos, and then I'm using this brighter yellow. And now when I come over, you can see how the little dots and those white lines that I first indented will stay. And so you just have it would be impossible to get tiny little highlights like that using colored pencil. At least I don't know of another way to do that. So I thought I was going to create this little ledge for my pear to sit on, and this was going to be more of a still life type drawing, but I changed my mind and decided to make this just be a black background. But I included this just because I wanted you to see that process and how you can change tactics and change your mind. So I'm cutting it down because it didn't need to be quite that big, and then I'm erasing off what I can. I'm not going to be able to get all of that pencil up since I had blended with Gamsol, but I did want to erase just to get a little bit of it. And now I'm coming over with a black marker. This is just a black Prismacolor, and I'm going to get rid of any of the white that's on that paper, and this is just going to give me a really nice space to come back through with my black colored pencils. This is a Derwent Drawing Black, which is just a really nice thick creamy black pencil, really opaque, and I just covered straight up over that little ledge. Decided I didn't like it. Now I'm coming through with the Gamsol just to dissolve that colored pencil, and it just creates a perfect black background with no splotchiness. Just a really great technique for a black background. And here is my finished drawing. If you would like to learn how to draw this yourself, you can head over to my Patreon page. It's www.patreon.com/JenniferMorrisonArt. Or you can also check my website, jennifermorrisonart.com, and see a listing of all of the available tutorials I have. There are currently over 100 tutorials over on Patreon for beginners as well as more intermediate and advanced colored pencil artists. And check that out if you're interested. Thanks so much for watching, you guys, and I will see you next week with another colored pencil drawing video. Bye!